Hi everyone, it's Emma. Today I wanted to talk to you about my writing journey because I guess in some ways, well, it's been long, if nothing else. And since I introduced myself in my AuthorTube video the other day, I feel like now is the time to start talking a little bit more about my writing project. At the moment I'm waiting to hear who would like to publish my book, so I'm going to be very vague about that part of the story until I know what's going on. So, I've always wanted to be a writer. For as long as I can remember knowing what a job was and that you could be a writer, I've always wanted to be one. I've always loved books and have always wanted to just be a part of that. I used to try all the time. I'd come up with these stories and I'd start writing something. I've got so many half-finished stories, but to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing. And they're all rubbish. I keep them because, you know, maybe I'll use them somehow one day. And over the years I kept thinking, oh, I really want to write a book. And, you know, I didn't know what to write about. I just didn't have any inspiration. And I think in the back of my mind I thought, well, maybe when I retire, that's when I'm going to start writing. But I found it really frustrating because it was like, that's what I want to be doing. Any job I was ever doing, it was like, I want to be writing. And I feel like it's just not, well, it's not that easy because you've actually got to write the book and you've got to have the idea. And I feel like that first book is the tricky one because that's the one where you've got to feel passionate enough to keep you in it when I think quite often you're going to still be working a normal job or, you know, you're going to be balancing it with your life more. And so you've got to have that kind of determination to keep going that perhaps maybe not so much, you might not need that so much in later books, and perhaps when you're still learning the craft as well. And also, for me, it's been a case of not really having the confidence that I could do it. You know, not sitting there thinking, well, I know how to do this, it's okay. Like, it was just, well, I'm writing this thing and I don't know if it's ever going to go anywhere. But because I felt so strongly about the need for this book to exist, that's what kept me going. Anyway, I'm kind of running ahead of myself a little bit here. So, the book that I've written is about the story of breastfeeding. I'm not going to reveal the title or anything like that right now. So it's about kind of the story, so as a society, and also my story, interwoven together. When I was pregnant with my first child, who's now coming up for 8, I went to all the classes and I've always been the kind of person that would choose, you know, a natural way of doing things if I can. People were saying, you know, breast milk's the best thing that you can feed your baby and breastfeeding is wonderful and all of this, so I was sold that was what I was going to do. And I'm the kind of person that generally if I set my mind to something I can do it, so there was never any doubt in my mind that I could do it because I decided I wanted to. So as far as I was concerned, that was job done. Everything I read or any information I came across was all about how like amazing and, you know, that you would just sit there gazing at your child and it was going to be this incredible experience. And I just thought, well, why would anybody not do that? Like, it just sounds wonderful. And I guess there was just this real rosy picture painted about the whole thing. Then I had my son, and a long story short, I had a terrible experience in hospital where I didn't receive any support with initiating breastfeeding. And then when I got home, I continued to struggle and received no support. And there was a mixture between people kind of just assuming I was okay because I wasn't really talking about it very much, and people who did know that I was struggling just saying, well, it doesn't matter, you know, lots of people don't breastfeed, it's fine, don't, you know, don't worry about it. And I kept thinking, like, what's the problem? Why is this hard? It shouldn't be hard. It's supposed to be natural. This is how humans have breastfed babies for millennia. Why can't I do this? Why was I ending up crying and bleeding? Like, I didn't understand. Because the books had said that it would all be lovely. Everybody was saying that it was this amazing process. Why was I struggling? Anyway, again, a long story short, I managed to resolve the issues that I had, and breastfeeding got to a point where I was happy and it was easy. And it was at that point that I read a book called The Politics of Breastfeeding, which actually is here. This one, The Politics of Breastfeeding. And I've talked before about this book and how this was a real life changer for me. And I bought it just by chance because I just thought I wanted to learn more about breastfeeding because I've been through such a tough time. So I thought, oh, I'll buy something that's kind of like not a how-to, but about, you know, the culture, well, obviously the politics. And it blew my mind because I suddenly realised that I'd kind of almost been set up for failure in a way, in that I'd been told that it was wonderful, but there was nothing around me to help me. There was no support. There was no information. I was, you know, and when you look at the statistics, the fact that around 80% of mothers initiate breastfeeding, but by 6 months, only 30% of mothers, or around 30, I think it's like 34% of mothers, are giving any breast milk at all. So you look at that massive drop-off and you think, well, you know, something's going on here. And I read this book which talks about the marketing of formula and kind of the history of society, about like medical advice and culture and all sorts, and just thought, oh, like if I'd have known it was this hard, that would have been useful. If you've been told something's going to be wonderful and you're going to love it and you're going to be happy, but you don't feel those things, then that makes everything even harder. If you're expecting maybe that something could be tricky, then when you meet those obstacles, I think you feel better equipped to just kind of go, oh, okay, like I just need a bit of support with this. I know where to go. I know what to do. That's okay. And to have people around you that can do that. But that just did not exist. So I read that book and I sat there and just thought, why is there not a story that explains this is the world we live in, this is the situation, and it's difficult, and actually we can sit there and be honest and not say, oh, I lovingly gaze into my child's eyes every time I feed him, because yes, I did sometimes, but I didn't all the time. Sometimes it was really hard. In fact, I'm feeding my third child, and quite frequently I'm not just sat gazing into her eyes because life, it gets in the way, you know? It's not always that kind of romantic, and we need real stories about everything in life, but including breastfeeding. You know, if you talked about romantic relationships, well, yes, there are stories about like perfect romance, but there are also all kinds of other stories, and we learn from this storytelling. That's how humans work. That's why books are so amazing and stories are so amazing, is because really we'd all be sat around a campfire telling each other stories and learning. And I sat there one night and just thought, why is there not like a warts and all tale of the fact that it's not all perfect? Because we're living in just this crazy world that just isn't set up for it. And because breastfeeding is a learnt process, so you need support and information. And in traditional cultures, we would have that inherent in our society. You would have been around breastfeeding since birth, so there would be a very supportive environment. And there isn't. And that night, I started writing my book, and I sat there, my baby was 3 months old, and I just thought, I'm going to start writing my story. And in the intervening years, I've written my story of feeding my children, and also I've started writing the things that I've learnt. And it's been a real journey of self-discovery. Obviously, I've had to think lots about what I've been through and how I feel, and analysing and reflecting on those things. And I think that the story that I have to tell is important because it's both extraordinary in some aspects, but also very ordinary in some aspects. I spent, must have been about 6 years all in all writing that book, because a part of the thing is that I had to live it to be able to write it, but also I had to do lots of research too to add into that. So I finished writing the book about 2 years ago. In that intervening period, I've been doing editing, I was finding an agent, looking at publication and all these things, and that's all taken a really long time. And obviously all of this has gone on with me working and having children as well, so it takes a really long time. It's a project that I am so passionate about. You know, I've been writing this book, you know, in the evenings when I've been feeding my baby, or, you know, when I probably ought to be relaxing watching TV. I've been writing this book when we go on holiday or when we're driving somewhere in the car. Like, this book has been everywhere with me, and I have worked so hard on it. And I've taken breaks where either I feel like I can't do it or that it's not good enough, and then I've picked it up again, and it has been a really, really long road, and I've had to keep believing in myself that it was worth writing. But part of that actually is that I felt if it never got published, I was still writing the story of my children, and that would still be a wonderful thing for them to have. If it never got published, it was still a thing that I wrote down while they were little that I would hope that they would love. So even when the going got tough, I would think, well, it's still worth writing in that respect, and it's still giving me practice in writing. As I say, at the moment, I am waiting to hear back from a publisher, and I am toying with 2 or 3 different writing projects at the moment, kind of deciding what to put my energies into. I'm sort of in the planning stage of a couple of different things. You know, I hope that this is my life now. Now that I've written one book and I know how one goes about writing a book and getting it published and so forth, that I could do another one. So anyway, I hope I will have more news for you soon. I hope I have more news for me soon and that I can talk about how and when the book is going to be published. And I'm loving hearing about all of your writing projects too. So please like if you did. Please subscribe for more videos like this one. And please leave me comments about what you've been up to and your writing journeys and your writing projects, you know. I want to know more. This community is awesome, and I want to be as involved as I can be, so tell me all about yourselves. Anyway, I will see you all very soon. Bye!